Josh Bushing, Fairly Awesome Podcast, here with my brother Nate Bushing and Staughton Wade.
Yo.
We're going to do a short on the sexism in games.
Ooh. You said the magic word.
Sexism.
Okay. I don't think ism is a good word.
Ism's not a good word?
No.
All right. So anyhow, a lot of games these days they've been using gritty material, talking about all kinds of things, and I was curious. I've read a couple of articles about sexism in games and whether there's a problem with that in creative media, and I came here to talk about that. I have no idea where I'm going with that.
I came here to talk about that.
Okay. So let's start out where we started out the conversation in preparation for doing this short.
Sure.
Which is we talked about Grand Theft Auto 5 and the sexism that is in that game, and I think for the longest time, people, and especially I've seen this a lot recently, are confusing sexism with objectification.
I can see that.
And this was very strange for me because there was an article that we read from The Guardian that was about an article in The Guardian, very meta there, that was basically...
They must have run a slow week.
Oh crap, let's write articles about our own articles.
Yes,
but
right.
So the long story short is that the female journalist or whatever commentator was...
Is this the one I sent?
Yes, was
Okay.
frustrated.
Actually,
the audience has no idea which one you sent, but maybe we'll post a link. No, we won't.
We won't post that link. We'll post the link. Follow it.
Anyway, so long story short here is that she was basically angry because there were no female characters with which she could blow stuff up with. It wasn't that she was mad that the female characters that were in the game are kind of your stereotypical derogatory characters, or they fit a certain archetype, because all the male characters do that too.
Yeah.
Right? So her anger was that there was no main female character in that game. So that's kind of where we started with this.
Well,
Sure.
I've also heard some people say that they don't like how the characters are even portrayed, like the females in Grand Theft Auto. And to be fair, anybody in Grand Theft Auto is like a bad person. Nobody is a
Right.
good character.
See,
They're all horrible.
And that's what frustrates me is I feel like people are saying the word sexism when what they mean is objectifying.
Yes.
Are there women objectified in Grand Theft Auto? Yes, no question.
Mm-hmm.
Are there women objectified in the MTV Movie Awards with Miley Cyrus? Yes, she objectified herself.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, but what she did was not sexist, because sexism is prejudice based on gender.
Right. And I would agree with you there.
Yeah, and it was funny because when we first started talking about this, I asked as far as I'm concerned, the expert on sexism, my wife, what do you think of this sexism in Grand Theft Auto? And she didn't say, "Oh, I hate the strippers." What she said was, "You mean because there's no female character, like strong female character?" And I
Right.
thought, wow, apparently there is a legitimate
difference.
Someone's missing the boat here by not having that strong female criminal character.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think that it fits in that game.
Gotcha.
Do you think that like Rockstar could come up with a sequel to the game, or in future editions, maybe to try to tap into that market of having somebody who's a stronger female character rather than somebody that's just objectified? Do you think that they could maybe pull that off to having it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
why not?
If anybody, Rockstar could, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they can put some, they can do, we've all seen, because Rockstar does stereotypes. That's what they do. They have fun with it, and we all know that, and it's very satirical.
Yep.
So they can come up with some kind of satirical female criminal character to put into the game. It just, in this game, they don't have one yet. And just to insert it in there to say, oh, look, we have a female criminal character doesn't make sense to me. They have to make it fit the storyline. It doesn't fit this storyline. I've beaten it. There's no switch they could have done that makes sense. And kind of to back up my own guess, prejudices, I went online and I Googled, female like criminals and female gangsters, and other than Bonnie and Clyde fame, there really are not any major American female gangsters.
Right.
But there are, like, in other parts of the world, which is kind of interesting. But in America, crime is kind of a man's game. Godfather, Scarface, Casino. So
is that just stemming from our cultural traditions of the man being in charge of those kinds of areas of operation, though?
Probably.
But then that's just product of the culture, and then people are just angry about things. I think the jargon matters. Like what you brought up is that the objectification of women is a different ballgame than sexism in general. And jargon matters. You can't communicate with somebody if somebody's thinking it's one thing, but it's in reality is totally different. So I guess I agree with you there. I don't think that the hullabaloo of sexism in games, and people have talked about this, I think it's a creative process. And if these people want to put that in their game, by all means. If you don't like those kinds of contents, or you don't want your children to have access to those kinds of contents, then don't let them. I don't think that dictates that you have to just then protect everybody else because you don't like something. So
let me submit another idea. So, we're talking a lot about Grand Theft Auto 5, but, this can stem all the way back. I mean, we had a picture up here of Lara Croft, right? So would you say that sexism has gone down in games over the years? I mean, I would notice, like, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and computer games and everything like that, women were really objectified. They had, like, the bikini armor, right? You got the metal armor that makes no sense. Guys are all warriors, and they're wearing full plate mail, and then the girl's got a metal bikini on, which is like... Which I see less and less of that nowadays. In fact, I would say... I would actually, in my opinion, it's gone down. Like, people have become more aware of the issue. And I think developers are more aware that the market of female gamers has grown, too. It's not a 14-year-old boy's genre game anymore, It's not...
And do you think that because more females are becoming into gaming, either by their boyfriends who are gamers, or, just because they're in...
I'd say they grew up with it, too. Yeah. It's the same, no different than you and I, or, Staughton, or anybody that...
I would argue that the objectification has gone down, but the sexism has not. The sexism is equal to society. That society, like we said with Grand Theft Auto, that the reason there were no female criminals is because there's no female criminals really in real life, which is reflected in other movies. In fact, you don't really see... It's kind of funny when you see that female action star. It's like they make a big deal out of it. So that's why I think that with video games, actually, that if anything, video games may be ahead of the curve sexist-wise, because they can do things that reality can't. We don't have... I should say, we do have female Special Forces members, but they're just starting up, just now coming into it. Whereas a video game can jump, however many years into the future for, like, say, Mass Effect. And Mass Effect has that you can play as a female character from the get-go.
Skyrim, same way.
And you can have a relationship with both sides, so they're trying to keep that...
Well, I would just say that you have all kinds of female characters that populate your crew. And now some of them are still objectified.
I would say.
But some, I mean, the guys tend to be in video games objectified, maybe not in exactly a sexual way, but certainly in a... You're not going to see a lot of nerdy guys as the action star.
No, they're all buff and ridiculous. It's the comic book.
Exactly.
Duke Nukem types.
Giant bees, huge arms.
Duke Nukem wouldn't make sense, if he was 90 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but
not a single pound of fat on any of these guys.
Well, it's kind of funny, actually.
I would say Grand Theft Auto, they tend to be more realistic, kind of looking in the male category.
See, this is the thing is that. When a woman is depicted in a video game as looking bad, and in Grand Theft Auto there are crack whores and other things like that, somehow that is sexist. But when a guy is depicted like Trevor is, looking like a meth head, that's not sexist or objectifying because he's a meth head. Well, so what's the difference between a woman that's a crack whore versus a guy that's a meth head, other than people tend to be mad because you don't have maybe that positive male character, but at the same time I would make a very strong argument that there are no positive male characters in Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
Just like there's no positive male character in Scarface.
Right.
No positive, frankly, there's no positive male role model in crime history.
Right.
Pretty much by definition.
Robin
right?
Hood?
I mean, if anything, I could go to movies and find positive female, The Bride, Beatrix Kiddo
Yes,
from
yes.
Kill
Yeah,
Bill
right,
is
right.
probably more of a positive female role model than anything else.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Fantasy actually, I think, does a better job of breaking down sexist barriers than reality does.
Yeah, I would
Right.
agree.
So I don't know. I'm not saying that. Don't get me wrong. It was funny because when, again, going back to my single source of sexism expertise here, when I mentioned, she said, "What's that one game you play that has the girl with the big boobs?" And I'm like, what?
Which one?
She says, no, the space one. And I go, Mass Effect. Oh, I said, you're talking about Miranda. And she goes, no, your character. I'm like, Shepard? And I'm like, and that's funny because I always play female characters. And the reason I always play female characters is because games are a fantasy for me. And I can't be a woman in real life. So I like
Staughton. We may be
this is creepy here. No, but I like a character that's like kind of a stealthy type assassin because I am not stealthy or assassin-like at all.
Gotcha.
And so female character. And it was funny because I never objectified my own character for all 3 games of Mass Effect, but then I hear, oh, well, that's the character that looks like this, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Apparently.
Like, I don't know.
It's funny because when guys say it, we're not like, oh yeah, that big giant yoked guy or whatever. You just don't say anything about the character, you know? Like,
Guy with the giant V.
yeah, nobody says that about, but
I'm going to start I'm trying to think of every male character from now on that I'm going to just refer to exclusively by a physical feature.
okay.
That's the way it's going to work in games
It's
from
like
now
it's
on.
like the chin, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, this is exactly right.
yeah.
So Grand
So,
Theft Auto, it's going to be the black gangster,
Yeah.
you know, and then it's going to be the old crime lord, and then it's going to be the meth head.
The meth head.
But that's not the way I think of those characters when you're playing them.
Yeah.
It's Franklin, Michael, and Trevor, and maybe there is a case to be made that there should be a Christina or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But for them to simply say it's not fair that they weren't in that game is not a fair argument because it doesn't fit that game. Mass Effect,
Or Saints Row 4, where you can play like as anybody, pretty much.
where it separates itself a certain distance from reality.
Right.
Where Grand Theft Auto tries to walk that line, where it's kind of real. Saints Row just forgets it.
Yeah.
You know, Mass Effect's obviously futuristic; they can do whatever they want.
That science fiction thing allows them to play in that.
Well, and like we said, Skyrim. You know,
Yeah,
Skyrim
Skyrim.
is another game where it's total fantasy. They can make the characters however you desire to play it.
But the problem by doing that, then they lose that fleshed out, written character, right? You know, like with Grand Theft Auto, they would have to purposefully write that character rather than giving you the choice up front, because otherwise it's a whole lot more work. You know, they've got to, all the voice talent and everything else has to go into it.
Games like Fallout comes to mind, where if you play a female character or a male character for that matter, there's a lot of times where you can use that to your advantage against people of the opposite sex.
Ah.
So I think that
Just like in real life, right?
well, maybe not for all of us, Nate. So I don't know. I feel like this is an old criticism, and people are mixing their definitions up here. And if anything, I think people need to look at video games as maybe being on the forefront of changing this stereotype.
Yeah.
Because certainly, we wouldn't think our generation. I think because you don't see like in sports this equality of play at all. I mean, not at all. There's no mixing of genders and
Right.
and movies may even be a little bit behind because I think that there's things that we physically demand of action stars that there's not a whole lot of female actresses that could play that even.
Well, and I would say that the numbers too. Don't they say that female action stars? It's like it's harder to bring in the numbers from the movies. And I don't know. It doesn't necessarily that maybe just sexism in your viewers, but it's there. And bottom line, they got to make money, so they got to make the decision whether or not to go with the sure thing or take a risk. And like you said, games are probably we've seen the most change in the last.
When did Metroid come out?
10 years. Oh, yes, Metroid.
Yeah. But seriously, when did Metroid come out?
80s.
And then all of a sudden, you get to that special thing at the end, and then you can remove her armor, and it's Samus, and you didn't realize that you were playing a girl the entire game.
Yeah.
And everybody's like,
oh my god.
Like, that was 80, like what, 86, 87, something like that?
Like, looking back, you're like, why does that matter?
Exactly.
But everybody was so big about that.
I mean, that sets a precedent. People are like, whoa.
This giant action star played the entire game, didn't know. Equality right there, if anything. But like he said, we've not seen the most change in any other form of entertainment other than games in the last, like I said, 15 years or whatever. Things have really turned around. They're not the same as what they were, especially with objectification.
Yeah, I think almost by definition, think games, media, whatever, objectifies people. I mean, almost...
We're still doing it.
It almost has to in order to... Because you can't fully... In TV, it's easier to do it because you have 100 hours in a long-running series to flesh out a character.
Right.
And in video game, you've got 20 to 40 hours or more to flesh out a character. But in like a movie... You're going to have objectified characters because you just don't have the time.
You got to have buy-in, and people have to buy in right away that this guy's going to behave this way, and this person, because people like predictability, just like pop music and, and movies.
So it's again, there's the criticisms out there. Mm-hmm. I think that they're confusing sexism with objectification, and I think that it's unfair to simply say it's sexist when in reality it's the culture that's sexist, not the video game. Video game is just a reflection of the culture.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, do we take that a step further in trying to change those kinds of things? Are we do we champion the producers and the people that are making these video games to challenge those norms just in society?
I think by talking about it, we're already bringing awareness to it, right? A lot of people in the past would just slough it off or say, it's just teenage boys being teenage boys or whatever, But it's...
I would never go out and buy something because it had a female character. I would never go out and buy something because it didn't have a female character.
Right.
I would go out and buy it because it was quality and it was good.
Yep.
Right.
And so I'm not going to reward somebody if Tomb Raider had been a male character instead of
Uncharted.
Well, but those games both have done incredibly well for themselves. So if Tomb Raider had happened to be a male character instead of a female character, it probably would have done really well because it was really good gameplay. I mean, it happens that it turns into like this silly kind of sexual objectification thing, which is somewhat sad, but at the same time, I kind of feel like, get over ourselves. That's who we are as a society.
And there was a big deal made up about Tomb Raider, the most recent one, where they had the death scenes, and they were really graphic with Lara Croft dying, and all these people were making a big deal about it. And they're Call of Duty, the most recent one, they're going to have women in Call of Duty now. And that's supposed to be a big deal. I'm like, really? Like, we've had how many iterations?
Was it Heavy Rain that had like a dream attempted rape or something like that? I believe.
There was a scene where she gets one of the main characters. She gets attacked, and she's like in her underwear. And
this is one of the things I find frustrating is because like that happens to women, and if you put it in a game, somehow that's sexist. But if you torture a guy on screen, somehow that's okay because it's not sexist.
Doesn't really make sense.
Again, these things all happen in real life. So what we have to do as media and video game players is stop judging the insertion of material and judge more of was
The
this
quality.
yeah, and did it make sense in the story?
Absolutely, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. So to your point, or to your question, we should buy it if it's good, and if it's not good, we shouldn't buy it.
Yeah, vote with your dollar. That's what I've always heard.
That's pretty good. Good stuff.
So I hope. I mean, personally, apparently there's a big market out there because we have women complaining not because they're strippers in Grand Theft Auto, but they're complaining because they don't have
character.
a female that they can run
see a
around
character.
and blow hoodlums up with. So
Yeah.
obviously women need to
need
sleep
to
with
escape
hookers,
just
sleep
as
with
much as
hookers, and then
everyone
kill them and take their money as well.
Yeah.
They did not realize there was this market.
Apparently, there's this market.
Apparently, there's this market. That's cool. So.
All right, I think that about wraps it up. If you guys want to like the video, if you enjoyed the content, please be sure to do so. If you have any questions, concerns, gripes, comments, leave them down below.
That's at Staughton.
Yes. If you want to follow us, www.facebook.com/Fairly Awesome Podcast, and on Twitter at FAPcast. Thanks, guys. Lord. Yeah. Strange crab-like people.
Crab people.
Yes,
Can
crab
you make
people.
the, can you make the
Looks like crab. Talks like people.
Zoidberg over here.
Dr. Zoidberg! Fine! I need a new job.
Nate wasn't available. How about Zoidberg? Or why not Zoidberg?